Man, you already know what it is. Jay Williams, Let's Live Life, and we're back. There's some videos I actually enjoy making. I enjoy making a lot of the videos I make. Then with videos like today's video, they're necessary. Because somebody needs the message. Somebody needs to hear this. Somebody needs to see this. Parents need to listen. The children need to listen. Just had a 12-year-old lose his life in South Philly. Always focus. The media will keep your attention off of what's going on here. Shine the light over what's going on with the next country or all the way across the world. And the bottom line is, there's wars brewing right here in America 7 days a week. Philly has been at war with Philly for the longest time. Last year, over 600 murders. You got Chicago, which is, got a lot of history. Beautiful city. Murders rampant. All throughout America, we have wars brewing within America, within our communities. Shootouts daily. You talk about what's going over there with people shooting guns. When we got whole neighborhoods where it's like Iraq. It hits home when it's the children. Huh? It's not as shocking when it's somebody 17, 18, 19 and getting older and older in age because we see it so much. When you get into kids running around with guns that haven't even hit their teenage years yet, it hits different, man. We'll do some of the videos on this, and then we'll get into my thoughts on the whole situation. This is nothing new to me. Guns have been, or I should say, were a part of my life for a very long time. I was one of those kids that at a very young age had a firearm. Kept one everywhere I went. A lot of the guys I knew my age, teenagers and younger, had guns. I've seen guys out in Philly, 12 years old and younger, with guns. I've seen dudes 10 years old out there selling drugs. So none of this shocks me. This is all stuff I've seen before. But a lot of y'all haven't. And that's what we're going to get in today. Our children, the kids, out here in these streets, taking lives, losing their lives. America, we're at war. Understand that. It's because you live in a gated community or in a good neighborhood and it doesn't happen, doesn't mean that it's not happening. A lot of y'all know more about what's going on in Ukraine than you do in your own state. That's part of the problem right there. We're quick to try to fix something else, when in reality, we're broken. You know how to seen it, you know how to lived it, so let's relive it. For y'all that don't know a lot about Philadelphia, Philly is a very diverse city. You got a lot of different cultures, different races. It's just, Philly's one of those places that once upon a time, people came there to start a new life. People of all races. A lot of Italians, Irish, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and so on and so on. A lot of history with Philly. Philly at one point was the place to be. Philly was jumping, and it's still jumping to this day. But Philly has become a place where you can go and lose your life, man. Like a lot of places in America. But it happens real fast in Philly, in the blink of an eye. I did time with so many guys in Philly that had gun charges, shooting charges, that it was normal. When they have a courtroom that's set up just for gun court, meaning everybody going in front of that judge that day has a gun charge, we have a problem. I lived at one point on Greenway For all my Philly cats know what Greenway, remember the hut, remember the little bar, the hut? I live with my homeboy Jimbo McClay, directly across from the hut. Now, if you're standing in front of the hut and you look across, there's row housing. And right as you're going down the row housing, it stops and there's an alleyway. And then the row housing picks up, then you go down and you got Gould Street and all that. Right in that alleyway, if you go back about 20 feet, believe it or not, there's an apartment in that alleyway. I stayed in that apartment. I remember walking down Elmwood Ave one day, and this is a long time ago, man, many, many years ago. And a lot of times the stores ain't booming, the shop owner, especially in summertime, will come outside and talk to people walking by or stand in front of the store or whatever. These kids come riding down the sidewalk. It's a group of like 5, 6 kids. They couldn't have been. They probably ranged from maybe 10 to 14 years old. And, you know, like I said, the shop owners and stuff, some of them are standing outside, and these kids go to cut across the street. When the one kid does, he's on a bike. He takes his bike, and he jumps off the curb like bunny hops. Boop. The tires to the ground. Something slides out of his pocket and hits the ground. I see the store owner walk over. Mind you now, we're walking down the sidewalk when these kids come by us on these bicycles. I see the store owner walk over and pick up what the kid dropped. It's a gun. This little boy that was riding his bike that just passed us with these other little boys had a pistol on him. And when he hopped the curb with his bike and bunny hopped off into the street to cut across the street, the gun fell off of him. Store owner picks the gun up, walks back over in front of the store, puts it in his pocket. Kid turns around the bike, and all the kids go back over where the store owner is. Hey, give me my gun back. Give me my gun back. No, I'm not giving you no gun. You're a kid. I'm not giving this to you. I'll give it to the police. Tell your mom and dad to come up here and get it. Man, give my gun back. I ain't playing with you. Give my gun back. Then that's the only gun I got. You better give my gun back. No, I'm not giving no gun to no kid. Matter of fact, I'm going to call the cops and give them this gun. Ma, smoke your bitch ass. I swear to God, you don't give my gun back, I'll come back up here and smoke your bitch ass. You do what you're going to do. I'm going to tell the cops you said that too. And everything's on camera. I'm calling the police and giving them this gun. They cussed the man out. The dude ended up having to go in the store because these young boys was ready to jump him in front of the store. And they peeled off. That just goes to show you. We didn't know when them kids rode by us on them bikes that one of them was strapped up and had a gun on him. The boy didn't even have face hair. No hair on his face. Not even a whisker. Not even a sign of starting puberty yet. And he already had a pistol. Then another time, the reason I told you about Greenway and the hut and all that is we were sitting out back. Well, actually, it would be out front of the apartment, in the front of the alleyway. And the apartment was just situated in the most worst type place, man. You cut through the alleyway to get to the apartment, or you can go around the other side of the buildings, and it's a parking space right there, right? I used to hate coming down this alleyway because the junkies would dip up in the alleyway and they would shoot dope, and then they would drop the needles on the ground. So then we'd have little kids out there on big wheels and playing, and they're playing around syringes. Every time I would come out, first thing in the morning, I come out, I do my daily routine, right? I go over to the hut because the bars out there sell 40s. You can go in the bar and buy a 40 and walk out with a 40, or sit in the bar and drink a 40. But I told you I was a big drinker. I'd start my day off, I'd go over to the hut, and it's usually when we go in there, we'd be the only white dudes. It was like the hut was all black dudes. They had pool tables set up, and a lot of dudes visited that place regularly, but it was primarily a black, bar. I'd go in there, grab a bag of 40s, 4 or 5, St. Ives 40s or Ice House, whatever we were drinking at the time. And I come back across the street, and as I'm walking down the alleyway, there's just needles everywhere. I'm looking like, I know I just picked up 10 needles last night, and they're back on the ground. Little kids out there playing, just running right through these things, right? And on several occasions, I tell the kids, hey, man, let me clean up out here a little bit, man, and then y'all come back and play. Y'all go out front. I didn't even want them to see it, even though it had become normal to them. It was like a country kid seeing an acorn on the ground. How does seeing a needle on the ground just become normal? Because a lot of these kids see that in their house. It's everyday normal. I take the needles and take it and push it on the brick wall, bend the needle, and then toss them on top of the roof of the building. Throw them up on the roof, right? Sling these things. God knows how many needles I threw on that roof. Well, we're out there one day, and My homeboy Brian, Philly, he's nice with them clippers, man. He's a beast. I don't know nobody better than Philly when it comes to cutting hair, right? So dudes will swing by and get the fresh shape up, or, you know, they get a line up or whatever, you know what I mean? Temp fade, blowouts, all that. He's out there cutting hair, and he's in the midst of cutting hair, and I hear somebody go, "Hey, what's up, man? Will you shave my head, bald?" I look up in the window, and it's a Cambodian girl in the building next to us, right? And I know they're Cambodian because that's what lived in that building, was a bunch of Cambodians. And Brian's like, "Yeah, I'll shave your head. What's your mama gonna think?" She ain't gonna care. You gonna shave my head for the rest of, man? You ain't about to shave that little girl's head off, man. You ain't about to shave her hair. Nah, chill. He's like, "Nah, I ain't shaving your head off, man. Your mama wouldn't like that." But it wouldn't be but a couple minutes later, I heard somebody else go, "Hey." And I look around again. Can't be coming from any places. We're in the alleyway. And I look up to that window, and then I look up above it, and there's this young ass kid, just a teenager at most, standing on top of the building, holding a shotgun. "Hey, you want to buy a gun?" "What? You want to buy a gun?" "Yeah, I got this gun for sale. You want to buy this gun?" That's Philly for you. Expect the unexpected. You're going to see things. If you're a long-time resident of Philly, the people have seen their neighborhoods turn over. People that have been living in Philadelphia, South Philly, Southwest, North Philly, West Philly, Northeast. Like, you got people that have been out there for the longest time. People that got, live in their parents' home. Dudes, his parents passed away. Grew up in this house. His parents worked hard and bought this house. These people are now selling the houses and moving away because the gunfire is an everyday thing. Everybody out there knows somebody that's been shot. Everybody out there has drove past a crime scene or almost fallen victim to some type of violence because it's just become so normal. I wanted to give y'all those couple stories real quick, just to give you some backdrop on my personal experiences and things I've seen in Philly. There's a lot more I could get into that I'm not going to. We'll save that for another time. So with the story of this little boy Thomas being shot and killed, doesn't come as a surprise. What it does do is it saddens me for a lot of different reasons. One, these people have to bury a 12-year-old. Life's just getting started. And I knew kids that were a couple years older than him that ended up getting sent off for multiple bodies. That's a true fact. I know a 15-year-old that went on I guess you could almost call this kid a serial killer, because by the time they caught him, he had several bodies under his belt. He got tired of being bullied. Stole a gun out of a car one day, and everybody that picked on him got it. He just went around Southwest popping dudes. Pulled the gun on us, was like, "Yeah, I ain't little such and such no more." Like, I really lived that life. But with this 12-year-old, his people now have to bury him. The community remembers this little boy. And they're all shocked.
Plainclothes officers assigned to South Task Force were in the area of 18th and Barbara Streets last Tuesday night around 7:30 in an unmarked vehicle as part of an ongoing gun investigation. Officers saw Siderio and a 17-year-old who police say they wanted for questioning. Police say officers approached the boys with their emergency lights on when a bullet shattered the rear passenger window, missing the officers. One was injured by shattered glass. Police believe Siderio fired that shot, and 2 officers fired 1 shot at Siderio each.
He was still in possession of the firearm as he fled on foot.
Commissioner Outlaw says the officer that will be fired followed Siderio and shot 2 more times, fatally striking Siderio once. Commissioner Outlaw would not comment on whether Siderio still had the gun at the time he was shot.
It's tragic that we have trigger pullers as young as 12. And it's tragic that we had one of our own, again, go against everything who we say we are. There are no winners here.
Speaking on behalf of the Siderio family, attorney Connor Corcoran points to police saying they were in the area to speak to the 17-year-old. He filed a civil suit against the department last week.
There's no evidence yet to indicate that my boy possessed a gun, certainly no evidence that he fired it. And while she won't give us any hard facts about what happened on the ground, she was a little too eager to try to throw this dead boy under the bus.
This does not reflect who we are as a police department.
No charges have been filed yet, but today the DA did release a statement saying in part the case is factually complex and deeply troubling. Neither the attorney representing the officer or the FOP wanted to comment today.
What do you even say, man? This shit hits home. I just finished watching some stuff on Instagram with his pops, right? From when this kid was much smaller. And he's about the size of my little boy right now. And that's, the little boy, rest in peace, that got killed by the police. His dad's locked up. His dad's currently locked up. So his father's dealing with everything that's going on. There's a lot of people that love this child. But I was watching this little boy, hug his dad. Say, I love Tommy, I love Tommy, I love Tommy. And all I could think about was hugging my son. Makes me want to leave work and go home to my kids, man. But I chose not to put any of the Instagram stuff in this video, showing him as a youngin' and riding his bike and doing wheelies and his pops and all that. Like, it's personal. I would never want nobody to hate me for exploitation or, anything like that when it comes to the kid. My heart goes out, first and foremost, before anything, to the family members of the young man that lost his life. Now, y'all watched everything I watched. Y'all just heard everything I heard as far as what the police had to say. This all stemmed, what they're not telling you, if you dig deeper, is this all stemmed, this little boy was on house arrest. He posted a picture on Instagram of him, his ankle monitor, and a gun with a laser on it, with the laser pointed with the beam towards 9mm. Police see this. Like I told you, they're always watching. The police see this. They start investigating into it, and they're posted up, waiting to see this young man. Some reports say that they seen him with a gun. Some say they just spotted him. And when they turned their lights on, allegedly, the young man turned the gun at the cop car and fired. Boom. Didn't hit any cops. Glass hit him. They got out. He ran. They pursued him and shot him. Shot him in his back. The law is the law. You don't get to bend the law or take the law into your own hands because you're a cop or you're anybody. When it comes to self-defense, I know in Pennsylvania and Virginia, it's a lot alike. Self-defense is only good up until the point that the threat is either eliminated or fleeing, saying that there's no longer a threat. He fired one shot and then took off running. They chased after him and shot him in his back. Was he still a threat at the point that he took off running? Because I can guarantee you, at the moment he shot at that cop car, he knew, even at 12, man, I just messed up real big. What do you do when you mess up at 12? When you do something, and I know it's hard to compare shooting at a cop to something we would do at 12. Well, what would you do at 12 years old when you messed up? You run. Where do you run? You run home or run to a familiar area. So they said they seen the two young men. These cops are in plain clothes. They're not in uniform, but they put their lights on when they see. Most people will be like, all right, that's the police, just run. But when they put their lights on, they're saying, this is what they're saying, that's when he fired at the cop once he seen the lights come on. Oh, cops, boom, and he ran. You knew he was running away when you pursued and shot him. Anywhere in America, doesn't matter what's going on. If somebody is running from you and you fire and you shoot them in the back, it's not self-defense. It's murder. And I know a lot of people, I'm going to get backlash on this. God bless the police. He shouldn't have shot at the police. He got what he deserved. Y'all say that because that's not your kid. You say that because you don't know him. If you knew him, if you watched him grow up in the neighborhood, or he was your little boy, or your nephew, your cousin, somebody in your family, I guarantee you play another side in this. There are so many what ifs. Well, what if he would have killed somebody else? Or what if that bullet he fired would have hit some? What if? There's so many what ifs. The facts of the matter is, he was 12. He was with a gun. living in the city, and the area he lives in is not a bad area. It's really not. It's not that bad of an area. You can see Center City in the background. Cop has been fired, but he's got to live with that the rest of his life. He swore an oath to serve and protect. And for the rest of his life, he's got to live with the fact that there's a 12-year-old in the ground that he shot in the back. They weren't engaged in an active gun battle. It's not like this kid was crouched down behind a car popping shots over top of a car and they were exchanging gunfire. The kid shot at them and he ran. You know what I'm saying now? He ran. He fled. There's no winner in this type of stuff. There's not. That family having to bury that little boy, all they remember is that sweet little boy. That's heartbreaking, man. As I sit here telling this story, all I can think about is my little boy right now, running around the house in his little Jordans, with his little chain on, and his little hat, trying to be daddy. I couldn't imagine. I can't even put myself in the mind state to think that 8 years from now when he's 12, I could be putting him in the ground. A lot of this falls back on the communities, what our children are subjected to, what they see, what we let them do, the people we let them be around, sometimes the pictures we paint. Philly's one of the places that the streets are filled up with kids at nighttime. You know, for most parents, it's, hey, when the street lights come on, you better have your ass in this house. We had the most fun out in Philly when the street lights came on. When it got dark, that's when we were mischievous. You know what I mean? That's when we were really up to no good. All that needs to change. I hope the parents watching this tonight when the street lights come on, hey, bring your little ass in the house. Don't nothing good happen outside after dark. Matter of fact, you need to be in 30 minutes before the street lights come on. If I look out and the street lights is on, I'm gonna bust your ass when you get home. Pay attention to your children. Be more involved. Know what's going on. This whole invasion of privacy thing, I'm not with it. I'm not with it. When you got a kid that is going down the wrong path, or you know what's up to no good, you need to know what is going on with your children before it's too late. You need to know that he's on Instagram with a gun before you hear it in a police conference, before undercovers show up on the block searching for your child and it ends in an exchange of gunfire. These are things you need to find out first. You need to dig. You need to know. Get involved with what's going on with your kids. This ain't the first kid to have this happen, and he's not going to be the last. He leaves behind a whole entire family, a whole life laying ahead of him because of something, a choice he chose to make at 12 years old. I did things at 12 years old that were just unfathomable when I think back, looking back on it. At 12, I thought I could take an umbrella and jump off a building and fly. I know now that if I jump off a building with an umbrella, I'm going to die. To my Philly residents, big salute and much love, man. To the family that lost this young man, the friends, the relatives, the people in the neighborhood out there in South Philly, man. My heart goes out to y'all. It really does. Because it doesn't matter if he was wrong or he was right, or who did this or who did that. Y'all just see the child, man. And I get it. That could be my kid. If that was my kid, I wouldn't be thinking about nothing but the fact that he's gone. I wouldn't want to believe what they're saying. I would fight to the very end to say that's not what happened, because we don't want to come to terms with what's really going on. There was a time when parents were very involved in their child's lives. Me growing up in the 80s, we ran the streets, we did things we shouldn't do. But we also got our asses whooped. Not called Child Protective Services, you just got whooped with a belt. They're going to show up and be like, why'd you whoop his ass? Oh, you should have beat his ass. They knew that was needed. But nowadays, you can't even spank your child without going to jail. Can't discipline your child, but the first thing they'll say is, you hit me, I'm going to call the police. The police will show up and lock your ass up. I don't hit my children. I discipline my children. But if it came down to me having to whoop his ass, or him spiral out of control, well, I'm all on that ass. Better believe it. Call the cops. Because I'll gladly go to jail out of loving you before I go to your funeral. To my people out in Philly, step in. Do something. Like with that store owner I told y'all about in the beginning that took that young boy's gun. Who knows what happened with that young boy in the future? May have went on to kill somebody. But the way things were looking that day, I could pretty much put my money on if he didn't die in them streets, that he ended up locked up. That's common sense. But just that act of what that store owner did that day may have saved somebody's life. Somebody out of Philly might have supposed to died that day. I mean, that boy dropped that gun, that store owner picked it up. You don't know. You could have been out Elmwood that day and the little kid passed you. And it might have been your day to die. But because that guy intervened to pick that gun up and didn't give it back, the little boy didn't get no chance to act crazy that day. We need more of that. And I say all the time, mind your business. Don't poke your nose where it don't belong. Don't get involved in other people's stuff. When it comes to the children, our future, our kids, the ones we love, you need to be involved. Step in. Step aside. If you stand by and you watch this, don't act shocked. Don't act shocked when it hits close to home. Who do you blame in these situations? People are going to say, it's the cop's fault. People are going to say, he shot at a cop, he got what he deserved. People are going to say, he had a gun, he had it coming. Or there's so many sides to it. And at the end of it all, the only thing that's fact of matter when it comes to it all is that there's a dead 12-year-old. Is that he's in a grave right now. I watched some Instagram videos earlier, man, of this little kid doing wheelies on a bicycle, on his dirt bike, with his family members out there in the streets of Philly. Like I said, it was gut-wrenching. Because a lot of people that watch the news, all they see is a 12-year-old shooter. But you go back and you watch those videos, you see a little kid. Even at 12 years old, you're a kid. Argue all you want. You're a kid. We're all raised different. Some of us are raised in neighborhoods where we see shootouts. We've seen people shoot at the cops. We've seen fresh bullet holes, fresh bullet wounds on people. All that plays a major part into who you become. If you're raised up in a house full of college graduates, doctors and lawyers, guess what? It's a very good chance you might go on to be a doctor or a lawyer. I got to touch on this real quick because it's needed. Somebody asked me, I can't remember when it was or which video, but somebody left a comment in the comment section and said, out of everything you dealt with while in prison, what was your biggest fear? It's a great question. That's a no-brainer. My biggest fear was always when I would get called to the chaplain's office. Anytime somebody dies in your family or somebody close to you passes away, they call you to the chaplain's office. The chaplain is the one to break the news to you. I've had it happen. I had it happen on several occasions. That is a bad day. This kid's father is incarcerated. And he got that call. He got called to the chaplain's office. He knew as he was heading over there, it was bad news. There's only one reason you get called there. Unless you're part of the congregation of the church or something, that's normal. And if you're not, you know as you're making that walk over to see that chaplain that he's about to give you some news that you may not have heard yet. You may not have got a phone call or talked to anybody on the phone. You're about to find out for the first time. Your people call up to the prison and say, hey, I need to talk to such and such. You need to tell him to call home. Such and such was killed. Well, can you let him know? The chaplain's going to call you. And that whole entire walk, I've taken that walk before. It's the scariest walk. Because you don't know who they're about to tell you is passed. I put myself in that man's shoes. Because I've taken that walk. Walking down that long hallway. Come in. Chaplain says, open the door. You walk in. Have a seat. I've got some bad news. Sorry to tell you. But your 12-year-old was involved in an altercation with the police last night, was shot and killed. May God be with you. Take a couple seconds, a couple minutes, get yourself together. If you need to use the phone, there's the phone. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but your child was killed. That is one of the scariest feelings you will ever encounter while locked up. Scarier than having somebody trying to take your life. Scarier than fighting. That simple call down to the chaplain's office to be given that bad news. There's nothing like it. I hope that this video reaches somebody today. If you're young, you're old, whatever the case may be, especially if you're young, it's not too late. You take that gun and you get rid of it. Take it apart. Throw it in a river. Wipe your fingerprints off of it. Throw it in the trash. Give it to an adult you can trust. Envision your life being more than what it currently is. Envision yourself with a family, a beautiful home, cars, kids of your own. Stop looking at where you're currently at in life and saying, well, this is what I gotta do. Think ahead 20 years from now at what life can be. To the parents that aren't involved in their children's lives, that sit by and let them do whatever because they're too caught up on what the mother's boyfriend might be doing, or the dad's too caught up on what his girlfriend is doing, or his baby mama, or his job. Don't ever forget about your kids, man. Step in. Know what's going on. There's no excuse for not knowing what's going on with your kid, man. Like I said, I couldn't imagine being that boy's dad. That dude's got friends that knows that kid. And I know they're all heartbroken, crying. Doesn't matter who's right, who's wrong. It happened. It's gonna happen again. The question at hand is the next time it happens, is it gonna be somebody you know? Is it gonna be your kid? Is it gonna be a kid in the neighborhood that you see going down the wrong path that you don't say nothing to? Is it? Are you gonna be like, damn, Jay was right, man. I could have said something. I could have went to his mom, went to his dad and said, hey, you know little man's got a gun? Or, hey, little man's doing this, or there ain't nothing wrong with it if you see your kid hanging out with somebody they shouldn't be hanging out with, say you're not gonna hang out with him no more. Do your damn jobs. We should not be burying children. Our kids are supposed to bury us. I honestly hope nobody took this video the wrong way. Nobody feels like I'm taking sides. These are just my opinions, man. It doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. That's what an opinion is. It's my thoughts on the matter. Not the first kid I've heard of being killed. Not the first kid I've heard of being killed by the police. It won't be the last. I more or less just try to, I'm not going to say this is shock value. This is more or less just trying to pick your brains, make you think, bring awareness to the situation. Especially in these cities, man, where it's common just to let your kids run off. At a young age, 5, 6 years old, these kids are jumping off the stoop all across America. from Philly to LA. At that age, these kids are playing follow the leader. It's not cool to be a doctor no more. It's not cool to be a lawyer no more. It's cool to do what goes on in your neighborhood. If your neighborhood gangbangs, shit, 5, 6 years old, you aspire to gangbang. Because that's what you was raised up around. At 5 or 6 years old, you see dudes with pistols out there. You see dudes selling drugs, getting money. 5, 6 years old now, you aspire. Get yourself a pistol. It's follow the leader, right? I tell y'all all the time. Each one reach one. Each one teach one. Especially for us ex-cons, us guys that have been down that road. When you see them young kids running around, what do you see? Mind your business. You know what I see when I see them kids running around like that? I see me. That's what I see. I see my son. I look back at my life. I was real good at hiding what I did. I was real sneaky. But I also know that there was so much going on with the adults around me and the chaos they had going on that a lot of what we were doing got overlooked. Because they had what they considered to be real problems, right? You don't know what real problems are until you get that phone call. Or until you look out your front window and you see them blue and red lights flash and you see crime scene tape. And you realize that's somebody you love laying there. And you got to open that front door praying to God that you're really not seeing what you're seeing. Or you get a phone call and you have to come down there and identify someone you love. Those are real problems. I truly do hope that today's video, if it only reaches one person, just one person, one listens, one parent, one child, one teenager. If it does that, then this isn't all for nothing, man. If this young man's story in some way can change or save lives, then my job here is done. If you're still here at this point in the video, I appreciate you watching, man. It's a topic that I feel strongly on. I could speak on for hours and hours and hours. But I do appreciate you watching, and I'm glad that somebody's listening. Rest in peace to that young man that'll never go on to be a father. Rest in peace to that young man. He'll never figure out what life is about. Do we ever? Do we really figure out what life is about? For me, life is about helping others. I think that's why we were all put here on this earth, was to help one another. And if we all thought like that, the world would be a much better place to live in. But anyways, these jails, detention centers, these prisons, these streets, they're all just crazier worlds inside of this already crazy world we live in. And as always, y'all know what I'm doing. Just trying to keep y'all entertained. Are you not entertained? And like always, this is Jay Williams. Let's live life. To all my real ones. And there are some real ones watching. Because y'all still watching me. And y'all know how we do. Salute.